Once again, when the Royals needed Cole Ragans the most, he delivered. We'll dive into his start next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Better spirits today on another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. We're on Odyssey and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you are a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, well, I am based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, doing some hosting, some co-hosting, and a little bit of producing on the day-to-day in the sports world. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you're going to be getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Now, today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Well, as I mentioned, better spirits today, a far more positive episode that we have lined up as the Royals won 4-1 at Target Field. Their final game, by the way, at Target Field in 2024. So you won't need to worry about the Royals playing the Twins there unless there is a matchup in the postseason. I know that can still be a thing, but I would probably say very, very unlikely that were to happen, because I think with the way it would be lined up, the Royals and Twins would have to meet in the American League Championship Series. Not impossible, just not putting a lot of money down to do that. But today was as good as you could have hoped for if you were a Royals fan. And, you know, last night, if you tuned into our episode, I think you would have seen a mixed bag of things are certainly not great, but also we can forget everything that happened tonight if the Royals go out and win on Wednesday afternoon. And that they did. And not only did they win, I think there were a lot of things to feel great about today. It would be hard if the Royals blew that game to, I think, really go into the off day feeling optimistic about what's ahead. We could scoreboard watch Boston. We could scoreboard watch Seattle. A lot of different things we could have done to ease our emotions. But if the Royals got swept today, I don't think there was anything I could have come on the podcast and told you to make you feel better. All that they needed to do was win that game, whether it be ugly, whether it be in blowout fashion, whether it be a nail-biting game all the way up into the end. That's what it was going to take. And today, what I was so impressed with, why it's more important than just a victory. It's important, of course, to keep pace in the wild card, keep pace in the Central. You know, those are all things that you need to be focused on. The Royals need to be focused on. But sometimes in the way you win like today, it gives you an extra boost. It makes you excited for the next time out. And I think it's because of how Cole Ragans threw today, how Paul DeJong played, getting on base all 4 times and being a triple shy of the cycle, and then Lucas Erceg getting the final 4 outs of the games. Those 3 things right there, I think, really gave me the extra boost of serotonin, if you will, in watching this game. I really do believe that a win like that can let you kick your feet up on an off day and almost just forget for a little bit that you didn't play well in that series. I think you've heard me say this before on the podcast, but if you are going to lose the series, you always want to win the finale, just so you can leave town with a little extra boost. And Cole Ragans, to me, might be able to feel as relaxed as anybody in baseball boarding that flight to Cincinnati, because he's done nothing but exceed expectations for me this year. And I knew that Cole Ragans was going to be good. I think that he is not only the Royals ace, I think he's one of the aces in all of Major League Baseball. And that's not a hot take. And I think there were people at the beginning of the year that had the same thought that I had about him. But it's also one thing to be given those expectations, be hyped up, We go over all the talented aspects of him. It's another thing to deliver. But it's also another thing to deliver when your season is on the line, when you're in a wild card push, you're in a playoff push, and back-to-back starts now. He was tasked with this responsibility of really putting the team on his back. Now, against the Red Sox, it was 4 total runs, but only one of them was earned because of an error by Michael Massey. So he goes 6 1/3 of one earned run against the Red Sox at Kauffman Stadium to avoid the sweep. That, to me, was the biggest start of his career. That was until today. And then today became the biggest start of his career because if the Royals would have lost, they are, at that point, 3.5 games back of Minnesota in the American League Central and the second wild card spot. And Boston would have the opportunity tonight to tie you for the final wild card spot. But he never put that game in doubt. There was one moment in that game where it was bases loaded, 2 outs. He had just been hit by a comebacker off the bat of Manuel Margot, and Royce Lewis, who's hitting .571, not a misspeak there, .571 in his career at the bases loaded, grounded out to Bobby Witt Jr. After that, the Royals did a really good job of just tacking on a few runs here and there and limiting the damage. Turned it over to Sam Long in the 8th, Lucas Erceg in the last part of the 8th, and then all of the 9th. And they win that game and get out of Target Field, get out of Minneapolis with a 66-55 record. But it was such a deja vu moment, right? It was a deja vu moment for the Royals that they were in a dire spot. Their season wasn't going to end if they lost, and we said that last night in the episode. But getting a win there, I think, just makes you feel more upbeat about going to Cincinnati. If they would have won last night and then lost today, we would have been talking about their struggles in the rubber match. And yes, more so about how Cole Ragans did, which if they lost, probably not good enough. And today, I think that was as good as he's looked all year. I would line up every single start that he's had this year, and I'm trying to not be a prisoner of the moment or have recency bias. But because of this spot, for how late it is in the season, I don't know where I could find a better start. He hit 99 in the 6th inning on his 87th pitch. He had 8 strikeouts, no walks. He's 24 strikeouts away from 200, which, by the way, hasn't been done since Zach Greinke's Cy Young year in 2009 and has only been done 4 other times in franchise existence. He's also number 1 this year. Season's not over, but he is number 1 in franchise history for a single season K per 9, which is well over 10 at this point. I believe it's over 10.5. Second place is Greinke in that Cy Young year, and he had 230 plus strikeouts and threw over 200 innings, but he struck out less than 10 guys per 9. So we're talking about one of the best single season strikeout seasons by a Royals pitcher. And from how they crafted and developed Cole Ragans, found him in Texas, flipped him for Aroldis Chapman, a few months of Aroldis Chapman, it makes that story that much better. And if you didn't believe it today, you sure as hell do now. Cole Ragans is the ace of this team. Cole Ragans will be the ace of this team for as many years as they can keep him. And what's so special about this is, yes, a part of the how they found him, the analytics department, the scouting department, the player development, to turn him into this. It's not like he was a 1-1 pick. You know, Greinke is one of my favorite Royals of all time. Greinke had that expectation. Cole Ragans didn't. And he's pacing to have over 200 innings. He's pacing to have over 200 strikeouts. He's pacing to finish top 5 in Cy Young. All of these things are awesome because, like Bobby Witt Jr., we put that heat, we put that pressure on him from the get-go. Going into this year, he's the ace. He could win a Cy Young. He needs to be the game 1 starter in the playoffs. And I believe that will be the case if the Royals get to that point. But the fact that you can be in a spot like this twice in the span of a week, replay this same movie of, all right, you're the stopper, right? It's one thing to be a good pitcher. It's another thing to be a stopper of, we're not getting swept. This is an elimination game. I'm not sending us home. It may be the offense's fault. It may be the bullpen's fault, but I'm doing my damn job today. And Cole Ragans did that. But the offense didn't explode. They weren't great off Louis Varland. Paul DeJong was. Bobby Witt Jr. was. But as for the rest of the lineup, kind of quiet, right? But you did enough. And you were able to go that extra inning, go over 100 pitches, and turn it over to the bullpen for the final 2 innings. And that is important to note out here, right? If Cole Ragans doesn't go into the 7th inning, you got to get creative with who's getting the final 9 outs of the game. And yeah, you have an off day and you could use Lucas Erceg for 2 innings, but you still needed somebody to throw that last inning or that 7th inning. And Cole Ragans just handled that for Mac Quatrero. Now, Sam Long came in. I would have gone Erceg for 2 innings, but no harm, no foul. They got out of it. Lucas Erceg's phenomenal, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on in the show. But what more can you say about Cole Ragans? I mean, he's been absolutely phenomenal. Every way, shape, and form has been the ace the Royals needed. And if you were worried about the velocity, you were worried about anything with Cole Ragans, I think today stomped out any of that doubt because he's hitting 99, 98, 97 on some strikeout pitches. And I truly believe the Royals would, be alerted if anything was wrong about the dip velocity. I think he has this range of 92 to 98, and it makes it tough on a hitter. You know, if I'm sitting fastball, it's like I'm sitting on 2 different pitches. I'm either going to get the 92 to 93 or the 94, or I'm going to get the 97, 98, 99. That's almost an extra pitch you have to worry about with his cutter, with his changeup, with his knuckle curve, and with his slider. All of those pitches, elite stuff. He was elite today. I tip my cap to Cole Ragans. He put the team on his back when they needed him most. We're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, Paul DeJong was phenomenal today, but I do need to answer some questions about should he play every day? Why doesn't he play every day? Where can he play if he's a regular in the lineup? We'll dive into all that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Have a few sponsors I want to give a shout out to, starting with Liquid IV. If you are somebody that struggles to stay hydrated, you don't drink enough water during the day, well, Liquid IV is going to have you covered with just a little packet that you put into the bottle of water, and you get a lot more hydrated throughout the day. And it could be you go into the gym, be outside, you're just working in the daily workforce, or you're cooking dinner, wherever you may be drinking water, and you want to stay more hydrated. Maybe you're dealing with headaches. Sometimes I deal with that in the summer, and I just don't feel like I'm drinking enough water. You put 1 pack of Liquid IV in a bottled water, and you are good to go for the rest of the day. Or have 2 Liquid IVs if you want to, and you'll be even more hydrated. But I cannot stress it enough. It really helped me out, and I guarantee it'll help you out. So with Liquid IV, there are no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Also want to let you know about PrizePicks. And with PrizePicks, there's so many great things going on over there on the side. And you've heard us promote PrizePicks before because they have those great deals that are constantly running over there. And whether you're thinking about, making a couple of picks for the games this weekend, the Royals will be in Cincinnati for a 3-game set with the Reds. They then will come back home to play the Angels. They're going to see those same Twins here in a couple of weeks to kick off September. And then also college football in the NFL is right around the corner. So if you haven't already gone over to PrizePicks, here's what you need to do. Go and download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that is LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100 over at PrizePicks. So go get started today. We gave a lot of praise to Cole Ragans to kick off the show, and I think rightfully so. We don't need to give out any letter grades, or we don't need to compare anybody to Cole Ragans, because Cole Ragans was the main reason. He was, in reality, the sole reason the Royals won today, and they avoided the sweep in Minnesota. But I do have to give praise to some guys offensively. I could tip my cap to Bobby Witt Jr., but we expect that from him at this point. We know that he's going to be a stud in big-time games, and he's just been one of the best hitters in all of baseball all season long. He's been one of the best players in all of baseball. In fact, it's 1 and 2 in the American League with Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt Jr. So I just, when he hits a home run, when he has a 2-hit game, he makes a great play at shortstop. Not that I don't acknowledge it anymore. I just expect it, right? Sometimes he may not get mentioned in my congratulatory tweets of praising the team for a win or being excited about the team because you just expect it at this point. Sometimes I tend to be more enthusiastic about guys you don't expect to be your main contributors. And Paul DeJong was one of those guys going into today. Now, he had not really been as busy over the last week. He hadn't been in too many games. He had been in some roles of pinch hitting, but had struck out on 3 pitches and I think back-to-back chances in which he got to pitch hit. And we knew that was a aspect of Paul DeJong's game. He's not going to walk a lot. He's going to strike out a lot, but he can run into a few. And going into today, he had 19 home runs. And I thought that he was the spark offensively. You know, he had the double to kick off the second inning, I believe it was. Eventually came around to score on a fielder's choice off the bat of Kyle Isbell. Then he has a single down the left field line once again. I thought had a really good swing on the ball off Louis Varland. And then his third at bat off Louis Varland, he hit one of the most majestic home runs I've seen from any Royal this season. Traveled 111 and a half miles per hour at 435 feet. It was a blast. And it was, in my opinion, what was kind of the nail in the coffin for the Twins. You know, they had just squandered that bases loaded opportunity, and the baseball gods finally rewarded the Royals. That when one team fails to capitalize on a golden scoring opportunity, the next inning they get burned. And Paul DeJong burned Louis Varland. And if Paul DeJong faced Louis Varland all season long, maybe he has 50 home runs because he was on him in all 3 at-bats. In his 4th at-bat, he draws a walk, something that he's done a little bit better in Kansas City than he did in Chicago, likely because of better lineup protection. He is doing what Justin Maxwell did for the Royals in 2013, what Josh Willingham did in this memorable at-bat in the wild card game against Oakland, just coming through when you need them to most. And we said that about Cole Ragans, but Paul DeJong had one opportunity to play in this series, and he made the most of it, going 3 for 3. He was a triple shy of the cycle, and it's going to raise the questions of why doesn't he play every single day? Well, I will reiterate this, that when the Royals traded for Paul DeJong, they did not view him as a starter. They viewed him as a power bat off the bench. Now, it is not going to shock me, with Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati being a hitter's ballpark, if Paul DeJong gets the nod in maybe all 3 of these games. Certainly 2. I think 2 of these games he's going to be in there because Michael Massey still dealing with that back problem, though he was in the lineup last night. Adam Frazier did have a 3-hit game today at the leadoff spot, but they're not going to hit him against a lefty. Paul DeJong has reverse splits, but there's 2 lefties that I think they're going to be facing Saturday and Sunday in Cincinnati. So I think Paul DeJong is going to have more than plenty of at-bats in this series against the Reds. But I just don't think he's ever going to be the guy you plug in at second base and third base and play for the rest of the year. He's not a leadoff hitter. He is a 20 home run guy. When he's in the lineup, he's going to hit 6th or 7th. Barring any crazy changes, the leadoff hitters for this team are Michael Massey, Maikel Garcia, and Adam Frazier. I have a guy I might bring up in tomorrow's episode who I think would be worth a shot, but I also understand why they wouldn't give that said player a shot. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, though, so a little bit of a tease right there for you. But Paul DeJong, I think, is being used properly in the same way that the Royals used Freddie Fermin. You know, they tried to make Freddie Fermin an everyday player for a very short time, but, you know, Freddie Fermin didn't really do a lot with that, 5 straight games that he was starting. I remember it started in Detroit, I think it was, and we said it on the podcast, give him an opportunity because he's better than some of the options you have. And I know in this moment we think, well, Paul DeJong's better than Adam Frazier. Paul DeJong is better than Maikel Garcia. Paul DeJong is better than Michael Massey. You can think all of these things. But Paul DeJong, I think, is going to thrive as a hitter playing 2 or 3 times a week. In Chicago this year, he did have 18 home runs. It was a bad lineup, but overall, he wasn't that great of a hitter. He struck out north of 30% of the time. He walked less than 5% of the time. And I don't even remember now. I might have just skipped over the stat that I was going to say about Paul DeJong. I'm doing this on the fly. What I meant to say was my brother sent me this stat of Paul DeJong has a WRC plus of 169 and a walk rate of 14% since joining the Royals. I can't believe I just skipped over that. I think my brain got sidetracked when talking about the enthusiasm we have for Paul DeJong. But you play him 2 to 3 times a week. You think that this is a guy that can give you a little bit of pop. He's not going to go 3 for 3 every single day. In the same way, Adam Frazier's not going to go 3 for 4 every single day. But Matt Quatraro and this coaching staff know how often to play some of these guys. And Paul DeJong, to me, is somebody you just don't overexpose. Freddie Fermin, maybe he's a guy you just don't overexpose. And to keep them fresh, to put them in good situations, good matchups. Today was a great matchup against Lee Varland, a hard-throwing right-handed guy, and Paul DeJong made the most of it. And I think Paul DeJong is going to play on Friday night, barring any crazy changes, because I think he's earned it. And we've seen Matt Quatraro from time to time reward those guys that have been really good at the plate. And Paul DeJong's been great since coming over to the Royals, but I just don't view him as being a starter every single day. But good numbers, right? Even though I was delayed on telling you, a WRC plus over 100 by 69 points. His walk rate is 10% better in Kansas City than it was in Chicago. I understand small sample size, but you have a guy that I think is a legitimate threat off the bench. He is a bigger threat than Nelson Velasquez was. He's a bigger threat than Garrett Hampson is. He is a bigger threat than Adam Frazier is. And that's great for the Royals. And today, like Cole Ragans, like Bobby Witt Jr., a big reason as to why they were able to hold off the sweep. So offensively, he gets the crown today. Well done by Paul DeJong. Before we move on to our final segment, want to let you know about Locked On MLB's podcast with host Pat Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. He's here daily to provide you national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When we come back, want to talk about this bullpen a little bit and what the goal just seems to be every single time they have a lead. Get the ball to Lucas Erceg at some point with the lead still intact. We're going to dive into how they can make that easier on him next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find me on Twitter, X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to two of our final sponsors, starting with Ibotta. Are you taking that dream vacation this summer by dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you get cash back on all of your purchases, so you can spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner that you've been craving. You can also save over 2,400 brands and shop over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and start earning cash back and using code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or the App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. Also want to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Today was another perfect example of Lucas Erceg being the fireman. Now, it was a much better spot for him to enter the game in than in the sixth inning or in the seventh inning, where you got to worry about who's closing out the game in the ninth. And Sam Long kind of bridged that gap in the eighth, but only got 2 outs and nearly gave up a game-tying 3-run home run to Carlos Santana, or at least it felt like that. Deep center field at Target Field, and Santana had already gone yard early in the day off Cole Ragans, but he drove Kyle Isbell near the warning track, if not right on the warning track, but he was able to pull it in. And then here came Lucas Erceg, and he never had any issue putting anybody away. There was not a single ball that I believed had a good chance of becoming a base hit, and he's allowed one hit since coming over to Kansas City. But the first batter he faces, he comes in the game. It's Jose Miranda, who had been torching the Royals all season long. 3 pitches, slider, and then I think the third pitch was a fastball, and he rolled it over to Bobby Witt Jr. at short. He makes the play. You're out of the jam. 3-run lead with Erceg being able to take on the final 3 outs of the game. And I think the great aspect of this is, how dominant he's been. It's not like he's just been good and dancing around some danger. I mean, he's been lights out. He comes in, he throws strikes, he gets the swing and miss, he gets soft contact. He is everything and then some the Royals have hoped for. What is going to make this bullpen so much better, and again, it's not a high bar to clear. Let's be very open about that. But John Schreiber is soon to return. So is Hunter Harvey. And I get there's mixed feelings, if not more negative feelings about Hunter Harvey. But the way Sam Long's pitched, the way Chris Bubic has pitched, you can get into this rhythm of all you got to do is get the final 4 to 5 outs in the hands of Lucas Erceg. So yes, you factor in the starters there. If the starters can go 6 innings, give me 5 outs. Give me 4 outs. Give me 5 outs. John Schreiber, Chris Bubic, Sam Long, Hunter Harvey. Do not care. Give me 5 outs. And get the damn ball to Lucas Erceg. Because that's what the recipe has been. You know, I understand that there have been a couple games this year where Lucas Erceg has entered earlier and they didn't keep him in for a second inning. Or he had a clean inning in the 8th. He got it and bridged it off to Hunter Harvey in the 9th. I understand. We all want Lucas Erceg to be the closer, but he's going to enter when the biggest situation is. But these other bullpen guys can make sure that big situation, right? That's the goal here. The big situation should be the 9th inning. You don't want that big situation to be in the 6th or the 7th. You want the most crucial situation to be the 9th inning because that's when Lucas Erceg can enter the game. And it's going to come down to some of these other high leverage guys and what they can provide the bullpen, what they can give Matt Quatraro. And if it gets simplified, hopefully by a good start, like Cole Ragans had, like Michael Wacha hopefully can have on Friday, or Michael Lorenzen, then walk on Saturday and Singer on Sunday, just limit the amount of outs you have to get from the other bullpen guys. Right today, I think it would have been ideal if Sam Long got 3 outs, 1, 2, 3, and you hand it over to Lucas Erceg, but just don't unravel. If you can only get 2 outs and you faced 4 batters, that's all right. We're bringing in Erceg. If you're Hunter Harvey and you have a clean 8th inning, don't necessarily look at it as, I have to get all 3 outs here. At least I wouldn't. I'm not going to watch those games now as you have to get through that inning. If you get to the final 5 or 6 outs of the game and Erceg's rested, hell, I'd even go the 8th and the 9th with Lucas Erceg. I don't want to burn him out, but he throws enough strikes and he gets guys out quickly where I'm not worried about a pitch count. Right? I thought the game against Boston last Wednesday, that's like what he can do is an inning and 2/3 and really not sweat that much. He gets the swing and miss. He's filthy. He's hard to barrel up. And if you have good command, it makes you almost unhittable. So for these other bullpen arms, where it used to be in the past, oh man, it's the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning here. We got to have John Schreiber pitch all of the 8th because we don't want to turn it over to MacArthur for a 5-out save. And they had to a couple of times. And it didn't work out many of those times. But now you have a guy who can do that. And I think Matt Quatraro will manage it like that. If you come in the 8th inning and you're John Schreiber, when he's healthy, of course, as long as you give this team an out or 2, we can turn things over. We can get it to Erceg. If you implode and you get no outs and it's bases loaded, well, I got nothing for you. But like Sam Long today wasn't great, but he didn't implode. He got out number 2, and it allowed Matt Quatraro to easily go to the bullpen and say, all right, this is the exact spot we wanted for Lucas Erceg. The goal should just be get it to Erceg, and we all know that. Bridge the gap to Erceg. Put that on the bullpen wall. Get it to Lucas Erceg. And that should be the recipe for success moving forward. Of course, easier said than done, but I am curious to see how this bullpen performs once they both get Harvey and John Schreiber back. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. We do want to give one last shout out to Locked On MLB and their podcast this fall, or leading you into the Fall Classic with Sully, a.k.a. Pat Sullivan, who has it covered all day long, every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tomorrow when we return, it's going to be an off day for the Royals, but not an off day for us. We'll preview that series against the Reds, and who I think could be a sleeper pick to lead off for the Royals. And I'll also get some thoughts from the listeners in the comments. If you think you know who it is, or if you've got a better idea, definitely let us know on the comment page below. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.